It is so great to see you, and it is so great to be here. And thank you, Lily, for just such an amazing introduction. I want to just tell you a couple of stories that I brought for you today. And the first one is how I came to be an NEA member. My first disastrous year of teaching, thankfully, I was next door to a woman who gave me the first step in being a professional. When she asked me, "Are you an NEA member?" And I didn't know what that was. And she said, "You have to join. I'm going to go get you a form right now and you're going to fill it out." And I did. I filled that form out, and I've never been more proud of a membership in my life. What an honor, truly, to be a member of an organization that fights to keep public education strong. An organization that knows that empowering the voices of each of its members is critical to that success. From my friends at the Texas State Teachers Association, there you go, I learned a lot about the NEA's history. I'm so proud to know that 4 years before the Civil War, the NEA had black members 4 years before the Civil War, and 10 years before women had the right to vote, they elected a woman president. Now, when I found that out, I thought, now this is not a group of people who are afraid. This is a group of people who are brave and who are willing to fight for those who have been pushed out, left out, and singled out. I feel like I'm writing you a fan letter because truly I am your fan. You don't know me, but I love you. Because every NEA member that I've known has taught me about justice and fairness. And every NEA member I've known is a fighter. To be in your company is an honor because meeting you and knowing you has been the best part of this process. Because you are absolutely obsessed with public education, and you are relentless in your support of it. When I think of you, I see warriors of kindness and warriors of hope, and warriors whose spines are absolute steel in your resolve to fight for what matters. You are the best kind of warriors, because you fight to save and to serve the most vulnerable people in our society, children. You are their voice and their champion. So my proposition to you, my fellow warriors, is that we do our best battle with stories. Our critics love cliches and simplistic slogans and manipulated data. This is how they attack, and the good news about that is the utter banality of those attacks. Stories are different. There's no defense against a good story. I contend that we advocate best for our students and our profession when we are brave enough to tell our stories. Stories, unlike anything else, simplify complexities. Complex stories are second nature to teachers because we know that our jobs are incredibly complex. But instead of lapsing into technicality, we need to do what we do naturally at the end of every day when we come through the door. We tell stories. Stories, especially teacher stories, have a unique power. For example, here's an idea of teacher leadership. I compare it to football because I'm from Texas. And in Texas, football is our second religion. And the comparison goes like this. Teacher leadership is a lot like football because you have 20,000 people in the stands who desperately need exercise, watching 22 people on the field who desperately need rest. Which gets at the why of teacher leadership memorably. It conveys the idea that the same group of people are usually doing most of the work and burning themselves out. It's why we need to recruit more teacher leaders so we can catch our breath, but also because real teacher leadership puts more players on the field and is a force multiplier of best practice. Teacher leadership is critical for public education because there are so many teachers who want to quit or leave the classroom and are tempted towards administration. We have to keep our best teachers teaching by giving them real positions of leadership and responsibility. Part of the most cited reasons for teachers leaving the profession is the pressure of so much responsibility with so little say in what happens. Stories stay after the data fades. In education, we have an almost dysfunctional relationship with data, as if the scale scores and the raw scores will form themselves into an arrow pointing, go this way or go that way. I like what Dave Zirin says about data. He says, statistics are like a bikini. They show so much, but hide the most important parts. And as we know, the most important part that data often hides is our students. Each data point is a person, which our critics often forget in their zeal to rate and evaluate. And children are notoriously difficult to standardize. Finally, stories tell the truth in a memorable way. The author, Kate DiCamillo, writes in The Tale of Despero, stories are light, and light is precious in a world so dark. Make some light. And so I want to end with a dark story, but don't worry, it doesn't stay dark. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who knew that monsters must somehow live inside bottles of whiskey because they could turn otherwise good people into someone who would grab her by the throat and shove her against the wall until she almost quit breathing, or into somebody who would take a baseball bat to her mother's face, or someone that did other, much darker things when no one who wasn't drinking whiskey was around. The monsters sometimes made bargains with her. They taught her how to drive a car when she was 12, so she could get her father home from the bar without another DUI charge. Once she drove across 2 states with her mother out cold in the back seat, and her mother's boyfriend so drunk in the front seat that she had to drive with one arm holding him off of her. She learned to live with her fists clenched, on guard at all times, because she was the oldest. But she had school and teachers. Teachers who gave her books and paper and pencils and taught her how to write when she wanted to scream and taught her how to write when she wanted to hit or quit or fight back. Teachers showed her that books could take you anywhere and that she could literally write herself a new beginning. That little girl was lucky enough to have teachers who were her warriors, who helped her fight off the despair that followed her to school every day like a stray dog. The little girl learned that teachers are the best kinds of heroes because they showed her how to turn fear into faith. Faith in her ability to think, faith in her ability to choose her own path, and faith to believe in herself. That little girl was me, and I teach for her. Thank you. I teach for every child just like her. every little boy that knows the fear that addiction brings, and every little girl that knows the fear that poverty brings. Inside of each of you is the same kind of child that knows light and darkness, and we all teach for that person inside of us. We teach for them. And we are important to our students in ways we can never really understand. I know that because I know my own teachers don't realize how deep their faith in me went or how it kept me going. Without the patience, kindness, and dedication of my wonderful teachers, I'm not sure I would be where I am today. My teachers were light in dark places for me, and you are light for your students. Now, not all students struggle with dark stories. For example, there's light in the face of a young man I know with Down syndrome, who's good friends with another child on my campus who cannot speak. I've watched them in the cafeteria for weeks, and the boy who cannot speak is in a wheelchair, but he claps his hands every time he sees his friend, the young man with Down syndrome. When the young man with Down syndrome first saw him do that clapping, his face broke into a smile that would break your heart with its purity and its joy, and he clapped back. The boy in the wheelchair shrieked and patted his head, and the young man with Down syndrome smiled and patted his head back, and in this way they had the most hilarious lunch together. And I ask you, where but in public school does that happen? We teach for those children, but we also teach for the children who come from stability and who come with curiosity and resources like my children and yours, but they still need us to light the paths that they may never consider unless we show them. And so, my light-bearing storytelling warriors, what stories will you tell? What are the ones that make you laugh no matter how many times you've told them? What are the ones you're afraid to tell because you're afraid it may break your heart? Those are the very ones that you need to tell. And so I want to end with a quote from Ellen Morgenstern in her novel, The Night Circus. She said, "Someone needs to tell those tales. When the battles are fought and won and lost, when the pirates find treasure and the dragons eat their foes for breakfast with a nice cup of Lapsang Souchong tea, someone needs to tell their bits of overlapping narrative. There is magic in that. It's in the listener. And for each and every ear, it will be different, and it will affect them in ways that you can never predict, from the mundane to the profound. You may tell a tale that takes up residence in someone's soul and becomes their blood and self and purpose. That tale will move them and drive them, and who knows what they might do because of your words. That is your role, and that is your gift. Thank you.